Should I record with a fez? I'm recording with a fez. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the archive of artifacts from the future. My fez. Sorry, I gotta calm down because this is meant to be like brain shutting off asthma content. But my fez came in, so this is going to be an integral part of my aesthetic. I'm going to wear it on every BTR stream from now on. This is the second part of the archive of the Wired Magazine Artifacts from the Future series that stopped around the mid-2010s. And this is just going through all of the future design and products that are going to happen. And I really love this like early 2000s futurism stuff. Late 90s, early 2000s. It really just speaks to me on a deeper level as a terminally nostalgia-brained millennial. So this is a blurb from the archivist here. Complete Wired Future Artifacts Gallery. An interesting byproduct of blogging regularly is that you find out who you care about by seeing what patterns emerge and what you decide to post. How do I know what I think until I see what I say? For instance, I have discovered that my top tag to date is art, 22 posts, followed by futures thinking, future shock therapy, politics, conception, visualization, and production of an engaging futures objects and images from standpoints psychological, philosophical, and political have emerged as major preoccupations. My doctoral dissertation in progress is heavily influenced by the fact that the manifestation of alternative futures experientially, including visually and tangibly, is what my energy seems to want to go. A regular source of inspiration and amusement for us, and certainly the most vividly known source of futures visualizations along these lines during the last few years, has been Wired Magazine's backpage feature, Found, Artifacts from the Future. Sometimes arresting and frequently clever, they're always worth a look. However, oddly enough, I don't know of anywhere that these have yet been assembled into an accessible online gallery. So thank you to the Skeptical Futurist for archiving this. But I want to say that before we go into the meat and potatoes of seeing the future designs, let me just say that it's quite interesting how the picture of the future has always been inherently aesthetic, political, psychological even, and you can almost see where people were at in the late 90s and early 2000s in terms of seeing and visualizing where the future would go based on the present of their like I remember the early 2000s, it was kind of, there was an edginess in the era, you could say. There was sort of like a cynical detachment that came from being citizens within this, let's say, post-Cold War mosaic society. I was seeing this poster today. I guess I could call him a Twitter friend. I can click. I'm going to call him that. He was saying how the picture that people like Fukuyama present is this like reified image of like, well, the history is done and therefore the technocratical managerial state that's here to stay. It's like this terminal neoliberal futures that is a nihilitative future. He would say that if Kojev were to come about, Alexander Kojev, he would say that, you know, the guy that Fukuyama ripped off of, he would say that no, in actual fact, you know, there is this debate within Hegelianism that there is no end. So he would say that our current epoch is just like one stepping stone, that this sort of displacement of our society from history itself is sort of a misnomer. But what's interesting about these artifacts is that it combines the sentiment of, think of like, I don't know, early 2000s reality television. Now think of the world that would engender before we know about this sort of odd digital re-enchantment of society that manifests in very terrifying and borderline schizophrenic ways. Before we know about how this sort of the ironic detachment of the late 90s and early 2000s, how that would give way to this like crushing wave of quote-unquote sincerity that is, well, I guess if you could describe wokeness or whatever as sincerity, or whatever you want to call it. I mean, wokeness is such an overplayed word, but it seems that history is trying to claw its way back into our view, if you will, our sort of social and civilizational picture. History is now creating a space for itself. But these artifacts presupposes that these trends were to have continued, not to say that they're useless in the sense. They aren't useless, but they are clever and sardonic and kind of like jaded pictures into how man or humanity from a very recent time period, relatively, envisioned just maybe a few decades down the road. To me, that's even more interesting than going back maybe a few decades, even multiple decades, going back to the 70s or the 60s, or even going like as far back as like was Jules Verne the 20s or so? I forget. Going like right back to the core of science fiction and the core of futurism itself. Those stand as historic objects of intrigue, and like in the work of art, you have like the futurists, either the Russian or the Italian futurists. They stand as a time period piece. They don't speak to us. They speak to us in a deeper level. They speak to us on an eternal level, the way that any great work of art does. But the futurism of a relatively recent past speaks to us in a different way than the futurism of, say, 1930s Italy, right? It speaks to us in a way that can make sense, because this is like an extreme reification of what we envision could be a possibility. And we're kind of there in some of them, but kind of not. It kind of evens out. But also I think that when it comes to this type of aesthetic, and you will see very like Y2K-ish aesthetic images later on here in this series, it is very interesting to see how my good friend, actually, Impossible Princess, she said that it's funny because when you look at the Y2K thing in particular, you see that the reason that translucent technology was like so fascinating is because we live in this like totally exposed society. We live in a future where, well, an imagined future where there's a total transparency of all life. There's this mosaic society thing, and really, they're an extension of our bodies. It's like how the first television was, made in plexiglass. I believe so. Or it was like glass where you could see the components. Like it was this, World's Fair type deal. Because it was really, that technology is like an extension of our own biosystem, right? Like that was their goal. And also like this world of clarity and smoothed out curvature, and it's bubbly. It's like Brace 3D. It's this futurism of every contradiction being smoothed out, but not in this like sort of quasi-commie Star Trek sense. It was more of like an aesthetic cyberpunk that was totally revealing of all things. And there is really this futuristic and clean world that we can explore. But so anyways, these are sort of like exposing the excesses of technology to fundamentally distort everyday life in the most subtle and minute of ways. Because this is what makes this series of Artifacts from the Future so interesting, is that it's not this monumental sort of CRISPR technology or gene hacking. It's like the gene hacking comes in consumer products. And that was fascinating. This is because every futurism presupposes that futurism will come on the back, like the future itself will come on the back of some kind of grand, totalizing meta-narrative vision of the future. That it will come about from some millenarian regime. But what's fascinating about here is that the future comes about from like consumer capitalism, which is kind of terrifying. And you'll see that a lot of these products are just, they're insane for a variety of reasons, because in the early 2000s, society was kind of like insane. I remember it was an innocence to the insanity. It's not like how things are insane now because we've experienced multiple quasi-religious manias of the past, few decades. It's more so that the insanity was an intensification of experience itself. But because this is when the sort of corporatocracy was marketing like experience being the totality of all life. But now, instead of experience being an exhilaration or consuming something Like what do you think millennials go back to like compilations on YouTube of like, cartoon, like buffer images from Teletoon or like, commercials that we saw when we were younger, where everything was like intense and exciting and accelerative. But here, that was like a reflection of like, we want this experience to be a form of liberation. But as time goes on into the 2010s, like I would say like terminal late Obama era 2010s, now experience is in the hands of like Silicon Valley oligarchs who are some of the millennials themselves. Now experience becomes a source of intense alienation. You will enjoy experiences, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy sort of deal. But here in the early 2000s, they still have the mindset of the consumer capitalism of the late 90s. You will own everything and have everything and experience everything. So that was actually great. I came up with that off the top of my head. So here is Found Objects by Paul Davidson. And these are crayons, but they're going to be some kind of screwed up thing. Red Dwarf, Nuked Sienna, iPod White, Steampunk Copper, Sky Brown, Carmine, GM Maze, Soiling Green, Grey Goo. The Grey Goo! They knew about the Grey Goo! Oh my god. They knew about the Grey Goo, ladies and gentlemen. All of humanity will be turned into the Grey Goo. Computer Color 2013. So I guess kids will identify with what's around them in the crayons. What is that? Blue Screen of Death. Toxic Wasteland Purple. Yellow Cake Uranium. Oh my god. It's funny, that's actually truer than you know how if you want to trace like a genealogy of like what a society wants to indoctrinate kids into, then go to like the crayons. Because nowadays you have like I guess like, if you go to channels like, I don't know, not Libs of TikTok, but like iHypocrite or like Battle Beagle or whatever. Like if you go to Twitter accounts or if you go to, I'm sure there's like a dozen of Instagram accounts like Boomerism or whatever, where they like show how they have like woke crayons now. That's like a thing. So that's pretty funny. That's pretty clever. Now in the future, this will be the police computer dash computer. Officer Gonzalez certified. This is kind of like Blade Runner. Guilty. Total fine $35,000. Traveling 375 miles in 170 miles per hour zone. Missing last fuel cell inspection. Risk of explosion 26%. Using Radio Shack reality distorter for avoiding detection. Radio Shack reality distorter. Well, Radio Shack is dead, so R.I.P. They didn't predict that one. Intending to run red light in near future as per precog report. Okay, so now you have the precogs. That would be a thing in the future, like Minority Report. Oh my god, Tumor X 30 milligram. So I'm assuming that in the future, like, cancerous tumors are kind of like the common cold. Tablet. Take 1 tablet by mouth 3 times daily for treatment of lung cancer. So pollution will be like literal, certain industrial heartlands of China levels of pollution. Dr. Howier. Mr. by Bear. Tumors should disappear by day 20. Olay, topical gene therapy treatment. Oh my god. But you'll still have like manual clippers in the future. I guess that's true. Raid Disruptor 1. Oh god. Oh, let's look at this. No lingering odor. No lingering ozone odor. Pulsing action. Caution. Do not use for household use only. Do not try to. Oh my god. And it's like leaking this like radioactive ooze. So this is artifacts from the future. Sean Hamilton Alexander. 40th reunion. Welcome clones of 2021. So I guess like in the future there'll be clones of like one particular basic corporate girl boss. Phytofusion. So in the future, you get to pick your own dog. You get to have, well, maybe they'll ban pure breeds because that's racism. So pick a breed. Oh my god. Get the dog in the vending machine. Petafloops of fun. Sea monkeys. Secret agent spy cat. So this is like basically those like these 1950s like back page comic pulp ads, but if they were real. Joy buzzer, the eye whoopee, so it like explodes you into the air. X-ray X-ray contacts. Acme Novelty Warehouse, place order Acme Novelty 2021, all products. Wow. So I don't know, do we have sea monkeys still in 2021? Just add water and emerge from anabolic hibernation right before your eyes. Imagine a colony of frolicsome mere people in your fish bowl. These adorable pets love to play and perform tricks. Hot gum. Surprise your friends. The label says spearmint, but it's actually spiked hydrocapsaicin. Wow, 9 million Scovilles of heat. Oh my god. So I guess like just torturing your friends in the future, that's going to be a trend. Jan nut. Let's look at this. Let's see if it zooms in. Pizzimato. So they're like, it tastes like a pizza. Pears. Cinnadel, so apples that taste like cinnamon already. Roma. Golden Ultra Delicious. So I'm guessing they're all genetically modified. Yana nut. Creamy. Nice. Try some with Smucker's GM grapes. Genetically modified grape. Gift certificate. Oh man, this is kind of like some of them venture off into like D's Illustrations territory. Gift certificate for the course of telemetric extension gene therapy. Happy sesquicentennial, you old soot. Happy birthday, Grandpa Susan. Happy 150th birthday. I love Grandpa. The kid there just doesn't look amused. So this is kind of like a more positive version of D's Illustrations. Voice altering mask. I want to imagine if criminals had that nowadays instead of like some fancy getup. Vat grown Vulcan ears. Gummy worms. GM maize. Oh my god. So I guess it's like nowadays it's just corn syrup. Sour neon worms. So in the future, like the Halloween costumes will be basically like they will modify your physiognomy. Oh my god. This is, I guess, the future space station. This is this image is incredible actually. WM. Oh my god. So what does it say? Adopt and space debris cleanup. Oh, so they're finally in the future going to have space garbage ships where they clean up the junk circle around the Earth. I guess that's pretty cool. They should have done that already. Self-chilling bottle, Corsa clock, and there's your office party. You know, sleeping with a secretary, making Xerox copies of your ass. 2014. I mean, they probably have the technology to have some kind of self-cooling thing. I don't know. So on to 2008 collection. Oh my god. This is hyper reality. This is like that video of like the hyper reality in the future. You have like NFT like Air Jordan shoes that look like hell. You have like all the street warning signs in front of you. It just is totally distracting as fuck. Like, can you imagine driving and like seeing like Starbucks ad, your video call? You have like the Pure Protein. I think that's what it's called. It's not a Cliff Bar. It's that other one. I used to get those all the time, actually. San Mateo County, Heat Wave 110, Jennifer, age 23. So, wow. So everything will be like this digital panacea of glittering light images. So imagine if you had an IT problem. Imagine if there was a virus or a glitch. You'd be screwed pretty fast. I guess Tesla owners are discovering that nowadays. Bioluminescent ink. So I guess this is what they give to the CIA. Glow in the darks. I think they have bioluminescent ink. They use squid ink or something. So, oh, this is a cool one. I saw this one in a bunch of other ones. If you if you Google artifacts of the future. No, sorry. If you Google artifacts from the future, I believe you see this one. Rona Metomatic, vat-grown Kobe beef in the comfort of your home. QVC prices. Only $700 to vat grow Kobe beef. But I love how like this image is like pretty aesthetic in itself. It's got that Y2K aesthetic vibe going on. Risk CNN. Oh my god. I could spend so much time on this image alone. Risk CNN World News Edition. Coastlines and coalitions last refreshed on 4/18/2027. Terra Cheriza, Central America, Heartland. This is very interesting. I wonder when this was made, because from Gulf War I till like the first rungs of the Iraq and Afghanistan war, where CNN, when it was still like basically, when it was still owned by Ted Turner, it was like basically they modeled the 24-hour news cycle on those wars. And there was very much a focus on like, Wolfowitz coming out and here's the update. It's like, let's interview General Schwarzkopf. And it just like, this is still presupposing that America will be involved in multiple wars forever ad infinitum, which maybe, who knows, right? It's funny because it still presupposes that CNN will be this like level-headed like analysis, like spectacle of the American imperial state. CNN, it's like its mouthpiece. But now CNN is like this terrible, like disgusting, catty, like college grad, journalism grad, intern, like girl boss energy. And all of them are just terrible failures in life. And CNN doesn't nearly have this much of a cool factor to be the imperial mouthpiece of the global American empire. But I think it's quite interesting how I think this was probably made around the early 2000s, I'm assuming. So that's kind of like a time period. Dawn of the network era. So here you have, I guess it's a museum of like the early internet dwellers, I guess. Life as the turn of... Oh man, this is trippy, man. This is trippy. A museum piece, Smithsonian Institute, Dawn of the Network Era, Life at the Turn of the Millennium. In addition to facilitating verbal communication, the cellular phone granted access to a primitive version of core mind. So not Neuralink, core mind. It could function for only a few hours between charges. Many citizens still relied on journalists to gather information and prioritize information, which was distributed 24 hours with under thin sheets of wood pulp, so I guess there's no paper in the future. Screens that displayed video imagery were a focal point of the home. Retina chips were still unheard of. The size of one TV screen reflected socioeconomic status. It's funny? Because I remember that. I remember, like, largely working class or below people being obsessed with, like, the bigger screens. Like, those really humongous projection screens. Like, I remember my old man's worker had one, and it was, like, this quest to get a bigger screen. I remember, like, that was the early 2000s right there. But nowadays, I don't know if that's really as much of a priority as opposed to, like, the quality of something. This is wild. I think, like, the fact that this future archive would have a self-reflection of their own era ensconced in a future citizen looking back and saying, well, this is how life was like for my great-grandpa in, 2001 or whatever. That's quite interesting. So I guess, like, you have an app for all of the wine stats. Is that what this is? White spectrometer. So you have, like, a wine spectrometer. So you can become, like, an ultra wine snob, an ultra wine elitist. Jobs speaks on anti... They presume that Steve Jobs would just live forever, I guess. That would be... On the antitrust suit, Apple is not a monopoly. Sneak peek moon-based Google. Keanu behind the camera. DIY nuke detectors. 101 reasons we're sick of the singularity. Virtual gold crush. Can you imagine if we lived in this world? How much, like, as much as it would be terrifying, how interesting things would be compared to, like, thumbing through a tech magazine nowadays and talking about how Like I don't know, some like post Gamergate nonsense, right? Like even back then they knew that Apple was a monopoly, which is kind of hilarious. And I love how like they managed to like age Steve Jobs like to infinity, right? Like he's just gonna be like he's not gonna die of pancreatic cancer. He's just gonna like age forever. Oh, so this is like spoofing future rednecks, I guess, future flyover state people. We need another border. We need another border fence. Yes, that's true. I agree 100% with that. They'll get my gun when they disable my AI sentry bot. So in the future, I guess, like fringe compound anti-government types, they're going to have, armed robots. Sentry bot, California, and like that's like the... Oh, so you have like a QR code in your license plate. Costco, I guess that's like the shrapnel from the other killbots. Climate change is a hoax. Sea levels are rising because Jesus is crying. Only hippies eat vat-grown meat. So in the future, it's funny because this is what it's nowadays. We all talk about how we're not going to eat the bugs instead of like vat-grown meat. They had to like can that idea because it was like disgusting. So, and maybe they'll bring it back. Who knows? But swap out, like, I'm not going to... Only hippies eat vat-grown meat for only hippies eat the bugs and live in the pods, right? You know what I mean? So, clones. So he's pissing on clones that, like, what is it, that decal? Is it the Dodge pissing on the Ford? I forget where that comes from originally. Clones. Oh, he's pissing on his own clone. We need another border. 2018 Costco retirement village reserve parking. So Costco is just going to like buy retirement villages. They'll get my gun when they disable my AA Sentry bot. Stop outsourcing jobs to Moonbase Alpha. So I guess like they discover the moon people. They discover the 22 Zeta Reticuli, the reptilians living on the moon. But instead of being like these Supermen that control all life on Earth, like David Icke says, they're going to be like the New Mexicans replacing our, took our jobs. But which is funny because I think like a lot of sci-fi that has alien races, I guess only a few of them. I think like Total Recall had this where there's okay, I guess like Warhammer 40K has some, but it's like there was that one series called Screamers, which I really love. Even though it was like, cheap as hell. Very like lesser known 90s sci-fi where the colonies on these other planets that mine resources, they stopped doing it because radiation just kept spewing out of the mines. Then like the corporations, basically corporations like going to war with each other. Basically what happens is the miners on these planets, they form their own coalition against these corporations and they create these killbots that are called Screamers where they perfectly replicate, like they're basically androids that look almost like humans and they get more sophisticated. But also the robots create themselves and they create new versions of themselves that can escape the detection of these wristbands that mark you for not, they exempt you from termination, put it that way, if you have this wristband on. It's funny because I think this, and of course the corporations, they use scabs as laborers from other colonies in space. So it is funny how a lot of these labor issues we have nowadays, imagine like exoplanet, like outsourcing to like space colonies. So it's kind of interesting. Microfluidics reconfigures nanotechnicians and cybernetic engineers local 224. Oh, I'm a pipe fitters union 224. I'm a working man. International Brotherhood of the Microfluidics reconfigures nanotechnicians. What would Ron Paul do? So, oh my god, I guess this was like the 2010s, right? Here we have a smart fridge in the future. So I wonder what's going to happen here. Extinct animal dinosaur, polar bear. The polar bears are going extinct. Puffin 5 flew, I can't say that word on YouTube. Debug home network. But it's funny, like in the future, they have a puffin, another avian pestilence, let's call it. Well, so I guess they predicted something. Defrost turkey, defrost grandpa, Jams UAV practice. Oh my god. T-Day. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 blast off. Your mission. An afternoon of 0 G's. So I guess this is like space camp, but only it's real. Don't wear your best clothes. Cupcakes served afterwards. Oh, so they teach you like juniors, how to fly a spaceship. We support our troops in Venezuela. Oh God. Oh, I guess they predicted this has got to be from like the 2010s, the early 2010s, where I guess Venezuela was going to be the target of the American imperial state, where we had to get rid of Hugo Chavez, because he's insulted George Bush. Butterball the tri-breasted turkey 6-legger. That was like that one Squidbillies where Dan Halen engineered like the perfect wing chicken. Oh, their neighbors are called the Jetsons. 1 cup of protein paste ASAP. I guess it's the bug protein paste. Shrimp lo mein. Ho Chi Minh House. Mold and bacteria levels high. So I guess like the smart fridge will tell you when you have to throw food out, which I mean, they've been talking about smart fridges, I think, since like the late 90s, I think. Defrost will be complete at 2 p.m. Okay, so this is the smart fridge. Whirlpool smart fridge. DNA code, no exchanges, no refunds, no scalping. Microsoft Seahawks versus Dubai Roughnecks. So all the tech companies are going to buy football franchises. Whoa. World Football League. Oh, it's not the American, it's the World Football League now. Oh my god, they have Far Side in the future. According to my DNA workup, I'm already dead. Historic Route 101. So, this is like the future where like Route 66 doesn't even it doesn't exist anymore, but like it kind of does, but it kind of doesn't. But it's like Route 101 is like the new 66 that like happened decades and decades previously, and now in this future, historic Route 101 is like the new Route 66. So that's pretty clever. Beautiful Antarctica. So global warming's gonna turn Antarctica into a tropical paradise. Sasquatch Redwood Refugee California. So I guess they're gonna have refugee camps for Sasquatches. Francis Coppola Diamond Series Water 2018 Blue Label. So I guess water is going to be so scarce, like fresh drinking water, that it's going to be like, procured in the finest springs. It's going to be like, Johnny Walker's Blue Label, second harvest, third harvest. Mars Safari. You get to go on a Mars Safari. And I guess that's the Mars Grand Canyon. Los Angeles Moose. I loved New York. Oh, so meaning like New York is not going to exist anymore, I guess? Well, that'd be an improvement. Reno, $100 C note, Reno, Nevada. Oh, so this is an average, oh my god. I guess the Nazball thing took off, right? So, this is the future America, Wall Street, where I guess Molebug was right. America is already a communist country. Oh, I get it. China and America have this alliance. So that's pretty amazing. Solvency is a State of Mind. The new book by Susie Ormond. So this is, okay, people don't remember this, but in the late 90s and the early 2000s, I guess, but mostly like the mid 90s before the dot-com bubble crashed, you had like a bunch of these like financial gurus who are basically the original like grifters of the finance world. Crypto grifters would be like the equivalent nowadays. But you had like these like really flashy seminars where they would give you this like corporate speak. It's basically like the Scott Adams like Dilbert like spoofed type of thing that was a reality back in the day. And I guess there are financial grifters now. There's like Dan Pena, or there's other people. There's that, who's that one guy that Sam Hyde talked about? Grant Cardone. Scratch and win, 401k, refill your 401k, Schwab Ultra Lotto. Basically playing the stock market is just like gambling. Oh, is that ghoul? What's his name? Kramer, Jim Kramer. Is that Jim Kramer in the future? He's just like so defeated and blackpilled. Kramer's hunger strike enters third week. Good. If you look up his recent comments on the you-know-what, he deserves it. So Bloomberg is like broadcasting his slow and painful death. The Dow. Oh, so this is, I guess, post 2008. The Dow Jones and the Nasdaq just plummets. Hang Shing. So the financial domination of China to America will be an inevitability, I guess. Clone Co. announces 2-for-1 split. Time Machine Futures collapses. So I guess the Time Machine, they didn't get enough liquidity. Bioterror is in. Then, of course, New York Stock Exchange. The Chi-Coms, I guess, own America now. So I guess like the sort of the interesting thing is that with this series, it's kind of like possibilities of the future as well. It's like not that far off of an exaggeration, put it that way. Okay, so this is from 2006. Goodbye mood swings. The mood rings, but they actually work. Stay on an even keel with Pfizer. Gammaceutical mood rings. Select a mood, and the ring will help you achieve and maintain it by releasing I can't read that. Love test, but only like this is real. So it's taking like novelty stuff that people know is kind of a gimmick and not real, and like making them real. Love test, it reads your DNA. Oh, so it's like a DNA reader for like your perfect match. Sex appeal, Casanova hot stuff, passionate, wild, mild, harmless, clumsy, cold fish, blah, eunuch. It's funny because that wouldn't exist nowadays. You'd have like sex pest, predator, threat level, 70% chance of dying of lamp dance by age 50. You have like the Giga Chud, who's like, oh my god, like you have like all of your flaws are calculated. It's hilarious. A lot of these are like desert based, I notice. I guess like the cold climate isn't a thing in the future. I guess you still have graffiti in the future. That's pretty cool. That's a pretty sick tag. Oh, Mars Transit. So this is the Mars subway. North Ocean. I guess this is all like the Mars cities, right? Ocean Line, North Sea Express, Viking. Oh, I can't even read that. Olympus Blasts, Opportunity City. Yeah, so this is the Mars map in the future. Oh, so I guess to go to the your mail, you have like a thumbprint. Daughter clone, John C. Ellis clone, daughter. ID confirmation under penalties of perjury. Declare this is my real thumbprint and not from a simulation, amputation, or bioframe copy. So I guess like, yeah, amputations or simulated finger thumbprints are like a thing in the future. Oh, so this is banking in the future. Insert $45 for suggestions for Quicken deduction bot. Internal revenue. Oh, so this is how you do your taxes to the IRS. Oh my god. This is surgeon in the future. Bionic dry eye. Jarvik. Half-life gut. Libido value. Data miner's lung. Data miner's lung. Sim message thumb. Rusted hip joint. So these are like the maladies of like the future Bugman phenotype. Corrupted memory bank from the Neuralink. Oh, I get it. That's from the Star Trek, the Borg. iPod implant. The robotic arm. Titanium shock absorbers. So I guess like when everyone's just like a, human ball of flesh connected to technology, that's going to be the future right there. So these are the books of the future. Whole Mars catalog. 2 and 3 brain quantum geometry for dummies. Learning from Vegas. Is your smartphone codependent? Looking young forever. 12-step guide. The easy way to stop playing World of Warcraft. Oh, so there's like a 12-step program for WoW players. Grilling that beef meets the Bobby Flay way. Dianetics revisited. Oh my god. Talking to your kids about mitochondrial de-aging. What to expect when you're expecting a clone. The 7 habits of highly elective cyborgs. So like the best cyborgs? Wow. Hive mind, ourselves. The Homo sapiens superior diet. Why post-human diets don't pass. Coping with post-singularity depression. So when we achieve the singularity, I guess all life just loses meaning. The joy of inference. GTDism reader. The end of history, this time it's for sure. Wow, this is amazing. So I guess like it's funny how a lot of these presuppose that in the future we're going to hit the singularity and life will just instantly lose all meaning. And it's like, oh, what are we going to do? I guess we have to consume cool products now. Get excited for newer products. Color View 2020. So I guess by 2020 we were supposed to have this. By Google. Disposable daily wear contact lenses. Cool View. Oh, it's a camera. I get it. It's a Google Glass thing, but it's like an implant. Coke Burn. Nutrition packs. 1 can, 12 flow ounces. Amount per serving, -500. Total fat, 0%. Total carbs, 13%. How it works. Coke Burn. 1 can burns 500 calories. Oh my God, can you imagine that? How it works. Coke burns proprietary enzymes and proteins, increase your mitochondrial activity, speed up the Krebs cycle, ketosis I guess, and overclock ion transport channels to help you lose weight. Contains carbonated dissimulated seawater, caramel color, GM cane sugar, membrane protein microRNA, dehydrogenase, phosphoric acid, citric acid, acid, natural flavors, caffeine. Warning, consuming more than 3 cans a day may impede Lyme cell, Linus cell regeneration. Do not mix with Cokes, Coke Jack Daniels, or Coke Captain Morgan's. May interfere with insulin implants and should not be consumed by diabetics. Contains retroviral RN, you know what. Do not drink if you have genetic predisposition for cancer. This can is made of 100% polymerized cornstarch. Please compost empties. Wow. Oh my God. And we have Oreos in the future Is that spray cheese? People still have spray cheese? Ugh. George Lucas Arts Magnet High School. George Lucas High School. Keyboarding subpar, too reliant on diction software. Data entry literature, 97 percentile. Superb essay, postmodernism in the works of William Gibson. Oh my God. Oh no. Metamodernism. So I guess it reaches like high school kids rather than like, creepy theory cells on Facebook that will, never get a chance at having tenure ever. Attention, must order audiobooks for trimester 3. Math, science, 90th percentile, excellent in physics for games. So you go to high school and the only job you have is to code for video games. Based on scores in national standards, or I guess movies. Genetic testing, students has a demonstrated aptitude for math and information analysis. MIT and Stanford have expressed interest in viewing transcripts. Press here for released transcripts. Art, 94th percentile. Top of her class in 3D modeling and procedural animation. So no more painting and drawing or music. Physics, 80th percentile. Performance at grad level. Meat space. I'm shocked like how they knew about the term meat space. Needs practice if she wants to make a Varsity Halo team next year. Varsity Halo Major League Gaming team next year. Wow. Parent-teacher teleconference request, citizenship / behavior. On 4 separate occasions, student claims that electromagnetic pulses erased her homework. Frequently switches classrooms with her clone. Made an inaccurate and derogatory alteration to Wikipedia profile of Assistant Principal Bueller on 3rd of February 2018 at 15:49. Record indicates that student is due for her Singapore flu booster. Student failed to take ADHD supplements on 6 occasions. Student's type 2 diabetic adequately controlled by diet. Press here to issue parental permission to remove insulin implant. So it's funny because it's an acceleration of a lot of the trends that us like core millennials were like, I guess, hard tested on, where the school would like sort of get involved with like your daily life more often. Also like, the obsessions with things like allergies and health. They sort of required a level of like biomedical control within the classroom itself, which is like really fascinating. 2001. So I guess she's a Zoomer. So I guess like Zoomers would have these like digital report card. Parent or guardian thumb here. Interesting. Motorola oh my God. So the tooth implant is real. The world in your mouth. Features vocalization system for silent chattering, heard via bone conduction, voice dialing, data sync via Bluetooth, decay proof. So this is like the conspiracy theory that some schizos used to have. I think even like the actress Lucille Ball from I Love Lucy, she like thought that radio waves were in her like teeth. It turns out that like I think they said the older mercury implants could pick up things. So this is kind of like a spoof on a very like old conspiracy theory. Future organ farmers of America. Look at this monstrosity. This is like a D's illustrations right here. Human Hearts 3 Grace AAA viable #1 breed donor sow. So it's funny because I think they're actually developing technology to grow human organs in animals, like hearts and so forth. Make it yourself with Walmart created home. Oh, so this is the 3D printer. So you're gonna print off your own basketball. And wow, that's not too far off. And this is the smart eyewear, I guess. So moving on. It's very interesting. I wanted to add to the general feel of the series at this point when it comes to artifacts from the future. There are a number of presuppositions within the series, some of which are kind of rooted in, I would say, late 90s, early 2000s moment of primary vector of social change no longer being caught within a grand historical moment, but rather something that is brought about through choice or consumer capitalism, commodity fetishism, and consumer products themselves delivering in the private sector any sort of lurid technological extension of human convenience there is. So I find this very interesting, but also you get this strange picture of the social being just as atomized, but just as highly influenced by direct one-to-one consumer and technological output and experimentation. There isn't really an emphasis on the way, for example, discourse in the social media age has evolved from that time period till now. It's almost a given that people are still attached to the official channels of both the news media, the corporatocracy, and other various instruments of officiated channels of knowledge and utility and so forth. That there isn't going to be a sort of renaissance of diverse voices, quote unquote, but rather that sort of celebrity consumer culture that was with us in the early 2000s is sort of here to stay. The sort of mimetic qualities of very, how shall I put it, very on the ground, grassroots, quote unquote, organic culture that grows from mimetics, that sort of becomes irrelevant or it doesn't take place. So for instance, when you go through multiple references to the singularity being this, as soon as we achieve the technological singularity, then all of a sudden, life sucks and people are coping. And we can go to various bus trips on Mars and so forth. We can go on the holodeck. But at the end of the day, consumer choice, by and large, is the #1 driver of any social relation, of any technological advancement, of any way in which technology affects social and cultural and so forth. So here we have these 2 blog posts by Nick Land. The blog Xenosystems was compiled by Apostate Gallery, run by, I believe the main person is Parallax Optics, but someone else, I believe, archived Xenosystems. So romantic illusions. Among the reason to appreciate more right for sharing this passage from Evola is the insight it offers into a very specific and critical failure to think. Neo-reaction is particularly afflicted by this condition, which is basically identical with romanticism, or the assertive form of the recalcitrant ape mind. It is characterized by an inability to pursue lines of subtle teleological investigation, which are instead reduced to an ideal subordination of means to already publicized ends. As a result, means-ends reversal, modernity, so means-ends reversal, is merely denounced as an aesthetic moral affront, without any serious attempt at deeper comprehension. So Nick Land is criticizing reactionaries who, like, we have to return with a V, trad LARPing. Capitalism, which is to say capital teleology, is entirely ignored by such romantic criticism, except insofar as it can be depicted superfluously as the usurpation of certain ultimate human ends by certain others, or, as Evola among other rightly note, by a teleological complication resulting from an insurrection of the instrumental, otherwise identifiable as robot rebellion, Shogothic insurgency. So Nick Land is basically saying that capital itself is like this alien force from the outside of what he calls the human biosecurity system. All sort of like culture and human endeavors and the bricolage of civilization is sort of helpless from this outside invader that will subvert our teleological goals to its own goals. That's basically what he's saying. Until it is acknowledged that capitalism tends to the realization of an end entirely innovated within itself, inherently non-linear in nature, roughly designated as technological singularity, the distraction of human interests, status, wealth, consumption, leisure, prevents this discussion reaching first base. But the problem is that when you compare this to the series of artifacts from the future, it seems that consumerism and leisure and status and wealth become so proletarianized that the end of capital is itself this final resting place of the human within this technological apparatus that can govern our lives into a state of permanence within the maximization of leisure itself. Any sort of exterior qualm or concern or residual doubt about the role of the human within this pleasure apparatus is sort of quashed by a pervasive NUI, which is really interesting because that's what the series is basically saying. Like, what if the early 2000s were forever? Which, I mean, would kind of be, on one end, would kind of be interesting and probably better than our own time, because nowhere in the artifacts from the future is there any reference to the current race and gender woke nonsense, culture war, culture camp issues that we're going through in our own time, which I find very interesting. Of course, the organization of society to meet human needs is a degraded perversion. That is a proposition every reactionary is probably willing to accept. Oh, yes, this is very true. So utilitarianism, egalitarianism, greatest need for the greatest number, that's all crap that must be disposed of. These are all human brainworms. Anyone who thinks this amounts to a critique of capitalism, however, has not seriously begun to ponder what capitalism is really doing. What it is in itself is only tactically connected to what it does for us. That is in part what it trades us for its self-escalation. Our phenomenology is camouflage. We contemptuously mock the trash that it offers the masses and then think we have understood something about capitalism, rather than about what capitalism has learnt to think of the apes it arose among. Capitalism offers us these shibboleths, these baubles of pleasure, only to sort of hard test its own limitations in any current environment. Now, I kind of think Nick Land is wrong in this. So he's saying that this is not a critique of capitalism itself, although I think there are good right-wing critiques of capitalism. For example, I think if you were to instantiate a system that frees itself of a lot of the sacred cows of modern political systems and like sort of a global homogeneous liberalism, you would end up with something that would seriously kneecap the power from which capital can become a social dissolution machine, a universal acid solvent. But that's, another video for another time. If we're going to be this thoughtless, singularity will be hard indeed. Extinction might be the best thing that could happen. That could happen to our stubbornly idiotic species. We will die because we prefer to assert values rather than to investigate them. At least this is the romantic outcome of a kind. So Nick Land is saying that both right-wing and left-wing romanticists are wrong, but I do find it interesting how this doesn't account for technology sort of stopping its deterministic progression when people are comfortable enough with the sort of toys and leisure activities technology can give us to where we can no longer have a grand totalizing vision. And I think that's probably the negative side of the Artifacts from the Future series is that it doesn't provide people with a total vision, but just a likely outcome of technology welded to the consumer capitalist machine. Well, now we can grow Kobe beef at home, can sort of isolate ourselves in these pleasure pods, and we can go on trips to Mars, or even go on them, VR style in what would they call it, core mind, instead of Neuralink. So then we have this other one called dark techno commercialism. Then it talks about the reality of a religious commitment cannot be resolved into its political implications. If it is wrong, it is not because of anything that politics can do to it or make of it. Providence either envelops history and ideology, subtly making puppets of both. It is nothing. However bad things get, it offers a reason not to be afraid, at least of that. One of the degeneration has no way to touch, let alone control. So he's saying about the inherent religious impulse of society, of any social political system, is always going to be affected by a teleology. You can't think of terms that we think of politics now in this very utilitarian liberal apparatus where we just have to plug in the right technical managerial system in order to get things done. It doesn't work like that. We're dealing with metaphysical, occulted forces that are beyond our control in a lot of ways. Similarly, the Darwinian truths underpinning rational ethno-nationalist convictions are invulnerable to ideological reversal. A trend to racial entropy and idiocracy, however culturally hegemonic and unquestionable, does not cease to be what it is, simply because criticism has been criminalized and suppressed. Scientific objections have significance if they are indeed scientific, and they are rather the corruption of science. But politically enforced denial is a tawdry comedy, outflanked fundamentally by reality itself. Well, I don't know. Again, I think Nick Land is wrong about this. I think you can... The reality deniers are winning for a reason. You could say that, well, science can get us this insight into the human biosecurity system itself. And, hyper-racism is reality, blah, blah, blah. The funny thing about it is that you can deny quote-unquote reality for very long, to where reality and fiction become intertwined in a sort of simulation. The techno-commercial thing, catalaxy, is comparably invulnerable. There is no chance that anyone ever will successfully prohibit the market or the associated dynamics of competitive technical advantage, which together compose real capitalism. So he's saying that it's almost like what Zizek says, that you can envision the sun exploding before the system of capitalism can be dismantled, because... And again, that's like the underpinning of capitalist realism itself, is that these market forces have so refinement maxed itself to the point where to argue against it is a literal impossibility, because it's almost like a force of nature. And so Nick Land is saying, well, just deal with it. As with religion and genetic selection, the techno-commercial complex can be driven into darkness, socially occulted, stigmatized as a public enemy. It cannot, however, be derealized by political fiat. So he's saying that no, the true machinations of capitalism, the way that techno-commercial capital works, can be buried by political systems. But the reality is that you can never truly bury it. This is just putting a band-aid over cancer. It is important, therefore, to understand where new reactionary dark thoughts lead. The horizon of despair is strictly limited to the political or public sphere. When taken to the edge, they converge with the intuition that no reactionary politics can be pursued to a successful conclusion. In other words, at their darkest, they predict that the stubborn delusion of the political dooms humanity's public exoteric aspirations to the catastrophe. So doomsday optimism is also a false hope. At this point, new reaction bifurcates. However, it is principally comprehended through trichotomy. A relatively light branch holds onto the prospect of public political insideness, of a world politically restructured in relative constance with new reactionary ideas, such that social order might be resumed on a realistic basis. So this is, Mulbuggian formalism. Just wait for the elites to wake up, and maybe we can take the clear pill and have a real social basis where, Kurt Doolittle, no one can lie anymore. Alternatively, and no less trichotomously, a dark branch points outside, through collapse, into tracks of religious, biological, and or catalactic inevitability, whose dynamics cast human delusion into terminal ruin. So again, Nick Land is thinking through the forces of capital, and consumer capital in particular, as a religious ecstasy that cannot be denied, like the axial age itself. It is something that will inevitably come about, and you can't put some kind of technocratic, however based and red-pilled my version of neoliberalism is, I can't really put a stop to it. You can't really give any sort of pause to these forces coming about from the future into the present, you know, the whole bit. If man never again reverts to sanity, reality will not stop. So it is a delusion that we can control these various waves of the catalactic of the outside. Outside in is darker than it is trichonomously partisan. Neither real providence nor Darwinian reality are attachments that trigger the slightest aversion in these parts. The idea that the neo-reaction will ever do politics or achieve insider status, on the other hand, except as a rhetorical tactic of cognitive independence, separation, is a possibility we struggle to envision. That leaves much to guess over on other occasions. Yeah, I don't see any, based in red pill elites anytime soon. Dark techno-commercialism, provisionally summarized, is a suspicion that the right singularity is destined to occur in surreptitious and antagonistic relation to finalistic political institutions, that the cathedral culminates in the human security system, outmatched and defeated from the outside, and that all hopes that these ultimate historical potentialities will be harnessed for politically intelligible ends are vain. Is therefore the comprehension of capitalism in itself as an outsider. So again, he's going back to the Kantian capital is a noumenal phenomenon, is a total outside to our human biosecurity system, our own sort of phenomenological world, as an outsider that will never know or need political representation. So he's saying that even like the Kantian project of perpetual peace, where we can sort of, through reason and through the engineering of our various scrutinies over the noumenal, that we can arrive at sort of a almost dialectical system of perpetual peace, or any sort of human singularity, post-singularity politics isn't going to be politics at all. It's going to be something that is alien to us because it is outside of our control. So politics is what he's saying, the cathedral, and all of the sort of liberty, opinion guarding, and gatekeeping of public thought, that's ultimately going to be crushed by the outside forces of capital itself. And there's going to be no recourse to the political, because of course the political is itself part of the human security system. It is a last ghost dance of control over the future. It is therefore the comprehension of capitalism in itself as an outsider that will never know or need political representation. Instead, as its ultimate enemy, it will envelop the entirety of political philosophy, including anything new reaction can contribute to the genre, as the futile strategic initiatives or death spasms of its prey. We humans are radically stubborn in our stupidity that has consequences. Perhaps they will not always be uninteresting ones. So what's funny is that I read this off at the end of part 2 of Artifacts from the Future, because the world that Wired magazine predicted is largely this. It is a world where there are a few government mandates to travel, but largely human society will degrade into whatever our technological apparatus can give us in terms of human agency. Nothing less, nothing more. It is whatever the latest consumer goods can give us in the way of human omnipotence and human ability that will guide the social, and everything will follow from that. So people will still be watching CNN, people will still have Roku, people will still have commercials, there will still be advertisements in the future. There won't be a utopian political system apart from whatever consumer capitalism can give to us. And in a way, it's less dark than the Landian, techno-horrorist right singularity of the human being erased. Rather, technology and the sort of technical apparatus of consumer capitalism doesn't go away entirely with the human. There will be elements of post-humanism. There will be immense evolutionary pressures that come about rapidly through changing environments and climate and radiation and so forth. But what's going to happen when the food and water are so thoroughly engineer maxed to where, lung cancer is like the common cold? Well, you just take pills and you take a Drano that gets rid of all the blood clots in your system, and people still live to 500 years old, even though you live in this pod existence. So that is the stasis that's brought about through the singularity which I think Nick Land does not predict, because Nick Land predicts that the machines will replicate forever and that humanity will be left into the dust and the human itself will be erased. And so it's even post-humanism. It is just entirely nihilitive. When in reality, if you say that consumer goods are the main vector of social transformation, the humans will still be around. Maybe there will be alien species. Maybe the picture of the human will be so fundamentally different from what we think of as the human. But ultimately, will still be these conscious masses to consume. And so I think that's a challenge to even Nick Land in saying that perhaps consumer capitalism will get to a point where stasis and inertia is optimal because the maximum consumption of the most products will achieve a sort of horrendous equilibrium, the likes of which will negate any sort of future exploration of techno-capital and techno-commercialism through its own satiation of its goals, which is to infect the entire planet and even beyond to create a planetary apparatus of total maximum alpha consumption. And so perhaps Artifacts from the Future is closer to the reality that we're going to inhabit than Landian right acceleration, horrorist, dark fantasies. So once again, folks, this is the end of part 2. Part 3 is going to come up soon. God bless and goodbye.